That's Mr. Charisma Chuck Schumer caught on a hot mic with President Joe Biden. What were they discussing? You won't believe this. Boring stuff that we all already knew about the midterms, but it gives us a good chance to talk about them, which is important because once again, our very democracy hangs in the balance on November 8th. So Schumer was referring to the debate between the two contenders for the Pennsylvania Senate seat, fake person, but somehow real doctor, Dr. Oz, and John Fetterman. And sadly, they're right to worry. According to a poll by Wick Insights that was conducted this Wednesday and Thursday, Oz now has the lead. And it feels like we are living in Oz. Cue the flying monkeys. Here is a chart for you. If the November 2022 election for Pennsylvania governor were held today, for whom would you most likely cast your vote? Republican Doug Mastriano or Democrat Josh Shapiro? If you're still undecided on who to vote for, please select undecided. Mastriano, 43.3%, and Shapiro, the Democrat, 49.2%. Undecided, 5.7%, and that obviously will swing it in these last couple of weeks, but pretty intense. What issues are on the minds of voters? Let's go to the next slide if we can. When deciding in this race, the cost of living is 31% of people's number one priority. Threats to democracy, 32.4%. Actually, that's our number one, sorry, cost of living number two. Jobs and economy, 10%, and then from there it's immigration, border security, then guns, then crime, then climate change, then abortion, and then COVID, which was the number one for everybody just a year and a half ago. So there's so many very important issues we're trying to decide right now. Schumer also mentioned the Nevada Senate race between Cortez Masto, the Democrat, and Adam Laxalt, the Republican. Though Schumer expressed optimism about that race, Cortez is not doing herself any favors with her approach to her messaging. Cortez Masto's camp has specifically designed her events to feature GOP supporters who support her stance that Roe v. Wade should have remained the law of the land and who agree with her that Republicans on the whole have embraced dangerous rhetoric surrounding the 2020 election and the Jan 6 Capitol riot. Laxalt has sought to appeal to that cross-section of voters by saying he's the candidate for change in an economic environment drastically in need, according to NBC News. And according to the New York Times, rent and gas costs have risen higher in Nevada than almost anywhere else in the country. So real stakes on the table, and it's all decided very soon.
Yeah, so there's two issues here. One is the hot mic. So let's dispense with that. People love hot mics. It doesn't matter what you're saying on a hot mic. You breaking news, hot mic between Schumer and Biden. People are like, what is it? What did they say in secret? And by the way, if you thought if you're in QAnon that you would expect them to be like, okay, when are the kids coming? What, you have their brain juice or do you have their brain juice? Right?
How come they never get those clips on hot mic?
It turns out they talk about the most boring. I mean, look, it's understandable they're talking about politics, but then there was nothing interesting in what they said in terms of scandal, right? Like, oh, I think we're doing well in Nevada, so we're not doing as bad in Pennsylvania as you might suspect. That's what they would say publicly. Right, so the hot mic part of this,
they tried to make it seem like they were talking trash about Fetterman's debate performance, but they were not.
They said we're doing better than we thought.
Yeah, and we weren't affected too badly by it. That's taking into account politics because people are playing politics with the man who's a stroke victim just having a little bit of difficulty communicating. They are aware of that fact and they're mentioning it.
Hot mic.
One thing I've been pointing out as well is that really. Dr. Oz, in my view, would have had a better campaign running as just like a centrist Democrat somewhere. Most of the scrutiny he's facing is because he's running as a Republican and not a Democrat. So Schumer and Biden definitely would have liked to have him better. But exactly, I mean, what they were saying was pretty standard and just like general, hey, I bought some shampoo at the store today type of comments. So
yeah, hot mic. I think it's gonna be sunny outside today. What do you think? Well, I heard showers later. Okay, wow, that's quite dramatic. Okay, now onto the main issue here, which is the elections. So it's an interesting point by Jackson. Like if Dr. Oz had come out and had very similar positions but called himself a Democrat, Schumer would have loved it. He would have financed them to beat Fetterman because Fetterman is more progressive, right? So let's keep it real on that front. But now, at this point though, look, the number one, we don't know who's gonna win. now there's polling everywhere, like meaning it's all over the map. Before, the Democrats had a solid lead. Solid these days is like 4 points nationwide, right? For throughout the summer, but all the polls agreed. And then the Republicans took the lead by a little bit, but again, they don't need much of a lead. In fact, if they lose the elections by 3 percentage points, they'll get Congress anyway because of gerrymandering, right? So in fact, if it's the Democrats have a 1 point lead, the Republicans will win. So the polling swung to the Republicans, and now the polling is all over the place. There's polling showing the Democrats are back up. There's polling showing the Republicans have a bigger lead, right? So what's your takeaway from that? Could the elections go either way? Yes, it's possible that the polling that the Democrats are leading is true, partly because they've switched strategies and now they're running ads nonstop about Social Security and Medicare. And the Republicans would they wouldn't take it away entirely, but they would cut it and they would raise your retirement age, and they've already said that. So the Democrats are doing good strategy on there. It might have actually affected numbers, we don't know. You might have a lot more women that are unlikely voters showing up because they recently registered. Likely voters voted in previous elections. The newly registered women did not. They would not be shown in the polling. That could make a difference. Every election, the electorate gets more progressive because of younger voters. All of that could help the Democrats. Or the Republicans can continue to win because the number one issue, as we showed you, is the cost of living, right? But when the Republicans win, this is what people fundamentally misunderstand. It turns out, including Chuck Schumer, because that was the one interesting part of the hot mic. He said like, "Oh, can you believe Herschel Walker is in decent shape? He might win, right?" Yeah, I can believe that because they keep projecting. They look at Herschel Walker and think, "How could someone that hypocritical, that outrageous, that unintelligent get any votes?" People don't care. They just care about Republican or Democrat. And they usually base it on the economy. That's why Bill Clinton, all the way back in the 1990s, his campaign theme was, it's the economy, stupid. Like he literally put stupid in the title of, like not his campaign platform, but there was a giant sign on their headquarters, and that's what they always talked about. It's the economy, stupid. And here we are. So if they don't like the economy, of course they'll put Herschel Walker in. We showed you the Mastriano one, because Mastriano is a full-blown lunatic. He's only down by 6 in Pennsylvania, not in Alabama, in Pennsylvania. So the Democrats might have massively miscalculated, and we might have a good number of really unstable people in the Senate, in governor's offices, and what I'm most worried about, the Secretary of State offices in states nationwide.
And so let's take a quick look at a little bit more of this very juicy hot mic. We've got here, speaking again to the failure of the Democratic Party, that Warnock cannot easily defeat this insane person, Herschel Walker, in my opinion, and also just anybody with eyes opinion. Let's look at this little bit of video.
It's hard to believe that they will vote for Herschel.
And this is Herschel Walker, who I believe we have some video we can show of just a little bit of highlights of Herschel Walker. This is the way this man's brain works as my brain collapses. Take a look at this.
What the heck is a pronoun? I'm like, I'm tired. My pronoun is sick and tired of these pronouns. Because right now, these pronouns are gonna get our men and women in the service killed. Let me tell you, it's China and Russia and Iran not talking about no pronouns. They're talking about war.
Yep, I think he said it beautifully there. I don't know what he said.
And America's not talking about war, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, man. Well, I was just gonna say, in regards to, what Cenk was pointing out, you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, it's just about the vote that they need in the Senate, which, for the long run gives, should give you hope in terms of the progressive cause, just because the Republicans are continuously losing the future. Because whether it be the reversal of Roe v. Wade, Republicans on record voting against gay marriage, voting against access to contraception. And, Democrats, the fixes in the areas where Democrats always fall short, they're easy fixes. Now, obviously, it's frustrating that they don't do it. It's just they need to hammer down on their messaging, really deliver home on what they have done. And the fact that when Republicans get in office, they just make everything worse. But that really, I think, in my opinion, just drives it back onto us. We need to up our ante to get better candidates in office, not just at the federal level, but every level. Because the fixes that the Democrats need really are simple. It's just we got to get the corrupt ones out.
Absolutely, and despite that, it's a dead heat right now between Warnock and Walker in this race. And they're somehow painting a man who's a pastor as a non-religious fake pastor. It's unreal. And it speaks really to the failure of the mainstream Democratic Party that Warnock can't just easily defeat him. And the powers that be in the Democratic Party also refuse to give any help to actual progressives who are in races in these upcoming midterms, November 8th. Let's go to the next slide. Josh Gottheimer has held New Jersey's 5th congressional district seat since he first won it in 2016. His tenure has been defined by both his unflinchingly centrist record and his powerhouse fundraising capability. Meanwhile, in Texas's 15th congressional district, Michelle Vallejo has gotten just $179 from the DCCC. $179. While the district is considered to be politically moderate, Vallejo won her primary on a platform that called for a massive Medicare expansion, a $15 per hour minimum wage, and free community colleges and trade schools. McLeod Skinner is arguably the most prominent progressive candidate to take down a sitting member of Congress in 2022. Despite that, her campaign has received a whopping $990 only from the DCCC through September. It's wild.
Yeah. So look, guys, here's more interesting stuff that apparently Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden don't even understand. So number one, the candidates matter a lot less now. The old adage was Tip O'Neill saying all politics is local, and you'll see people still repeating that ad nauseum. That is not at all true anymore. All politics was local when most people got their news from local newspapers and local radio. That they don't get the news from there anymore. They get it from cable news and national papers and the internet, right? So all politics is now national, especially on the Republican front. Republican voters are zombies. They will vote for anyone. I mean, look, Herschel Walker proves it. I mean, we just showed you one funny clip. There's 1,000 clips. He paid for a couple of abortions. He's violated every part of what they claimed that they wanted and represented.
He thinks he's a police officer, thinks he's in the FBI. He's got fake badges to prove it. I mean, in every way, the guy is a joke candidate.
He said he finished #1 at University of Georgia when he didn't even finish. He didn't graduate. He's a monstrous, hilarious liar. And the Republicans are like, yep, our guy. They haven't wavered 1 inch. He didn't lose a single Republican vote through the abortions or any of the lies or anything else. So Chuck Schumer's like, oh, that's weird, huh? It's not weird, you schmuck, you 98-year-old mummy. Okay, you don't understand politics at all, and you're the leader of the Democrats in the Senate. So that's the one part of the hot mic that is relevant. Democrats and independents care a little bit more. So if you have a good Democratic candidate like Fetterman pre-stroke, he had like a 10-point lead. Right? Because he's out there kicking ass and being populist and saying, hey man, I'm gonna stick up for you, I'm gonna get you higher wages, I'm gonna get you health care, etc. People are like, oh, I love that, right? You got a good Democratic candidate, Tim Ryan in Ohio. And look, I don't love all of Tim Ryan's policies, but he's running super hard, super aggressive, and he's trying to reach middle class in a different way. A good candidate makes a difference. He caught JD Vance. I mean, but because of the national tide, he's in trouble too, right? So, but mainly that cost of living thing that you saw there, that's the national messaging that will make so much more of a difference than anything else. And of course, corporate Democrats are always a corporate Democrat. They're gonna give money to Gottheimer, who's a Republican anyway. And then they're like, oh, you're like a fake Democrat who's actually secretly a Republican. Here's all of our money. Who cares about his goddamn seat? Go protect McLeod Skinner. That is a very purple district. I actually say slightly blue, but because of the national wave, we're afraid of losing that seat. But they're like, oh, you went against a corporate Democratic incumbent. We're only gonna give you $900. You monsters. That's a seat we can win. What are you doing? What are you doing? Yep. But they're gonna blow this election because Democratic leaders are idiots. Idiots. If we had decent leadership, we could turn this thing around. Last thing I'll say on it. So what can you do about inflation? I mean, that's bad. It's under Joe Biden and the Democratic rule. There's 1,000 things you could do. First, one thing you could do is take Bernie's strategy and go, they're doing price gouging. Look at all these record profits. And you show profit after profit after profit after profit. Go, look at the goddamn companies gouging you when you need. But you know what we're gonna do instead? We're gonna get you a $15 minimum wage right and get your wages up so you can have higher wages to pay for all that cost of living problems, right? People are like, oh, and what would happen? The Republicans would attack and go, oh, you can't give people higher wages. Boom, you win the election. But these morons, yes, Biden, Schumer, I know mainstream media's feelings will be so deeply hurt. You can't call powerful people stupid. Too late, I already did. These dum-dums are like, oh, I don't know, let's avoid inflation.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the way Schumer talks with his glasses down like a grandma. And another thing we have to do is move with urgency to save the republic. You saw democracy is the other issue that's most important in people's eyes. And the Republicans, like Cenk said, they do not care who the candidate is, and it's just a bonus for them if the person's famous. They'll just vote for a celebrity now in any instance. Of course, Trump, and then of course, Herschel Walker, famous football player, and even Dr. Oz, who's so fame hungry, doesn't care about politics, doesn't want to do politics. I never said this on the air, I did a sketch with Dr. Oz. I think we have a photo. This is him pretending to be my proctologist. This is literally Dr. Oz pretending to look in my butt on a comedy sketch. And when that show didn't get picked up, he's like, how else can I stay in the public eye? Politics, that's the way to do it. What a joke.
And the Republicans have crafted themselves a position to where they're pretty much impervious to criticism. Not that they're, absolutely, bound from it, because with effective attacks they could be killed. But Herschel Walker, they're just like, oh, well, he's black, so that's why the Democrats are coming after him, because we're gonna have a flood of young black children who come into the Republican Party, even though that's never happened with any of the other token black people that they've used. And on top of also Warnock, he at the debate, he really, in my opinion, didn't come down on Herschel as hard as he wanted to. And it leaked out that some of his strategy was he didn't want to because he didn't want to come off as elitist. It's like, being strong doesn't come off as elitist, and that's often why Republicans win, because their base thinks they're strong, even though they don't know what they're talking about, even though they're ridiculous, that they're strong. And Democrats always miss that point.
Yeah, that's Democratic consultants telling them, power down, don't be uncivil. People don't like uncivil. People don't like uncivil. Donald Trump was president. Democratic consultants and leadership, I mean, they make Republicans look smart. That's how awful they are. And that's why we have at best a tie going into these elections. God help us all. Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.